Gold has long been viewed as one of the most valuable and fascinating assets in the global market, a symbol of stability, wealth, and economic resilience. In today's changing financial landscape, its role continues to evolve as investors and analysts watch its movements closely. From shifts in currency values to the resurgence of the Canadian mining sector, gold remains at the center of economic discussions. To help us better understand its current position, global impact, and future potential, we're joined by Brendan Caldwell, Director at Caldwell Securities Limited. Brendan, thank you for the time.
Theresa, good to be here.
Now,
It's
let's
an
start.
interesting segue from the NDP and just with their goldish colored logo to this. So let's do it.
Well, I'm glad you see the connection, but let's start with what's driving up the price of gold.
Uh, I guess the first thing that pops into my mind is that gold is the original store of value. Money for thousands of years was never paper; it was always metal, copper, silver, and most of all gold. Um, in that, and up until early on in my lifetime, even the paper money, the U.S. dollar specifically, was backed by gold. So whatever money was out there in circulation in the United States had been actually backed by gold. So it was Nixon that in the 70s took the U.S. dollar off of the gold standard and thereby decoupled the value of paper money from the underlying hard asset. And it paved the way for gold to go from $30 or $40 an ounce to literally 100 times that now, $4,000 an ounce. So it's the opposite, really, of the U.S. dollar. It's the flip side of paper money, of fiat currencies, because even as paper money devalues and devalues and devalues because of inflation, with a lot of bumps and twists and turns along the way, gold has gone up and up and up.
And what effect does gold have on the Canadian dollar, even the Canadian economy?
Well, it's a big part of our economy. Probably should be a bigger part of our economy. We are extremely rich as a country in natural resources in the ground. Now, we have some world leading mines in gold, other precious metals, and base metals as well. But it takes an awfully long time in Canada because of various factions to get any of that out of the ground. So whether we're talking gold or the so-called rare earths or other resources, the one of the promises of the current federal government has been to fast track development and to streamline the process for um, developing big projects. Mining would be among them. Now, in terms of the Canadian dollar, Canada had quite a large gold reserve, but quite some years ago, most of that was sold off, with the thought being that since we dig up so much of it and our gold reserves are in the ground, we don't need as a nation to hold on to refined gold in some vault. Not every nation feels that way. So a lot of developing nations, China, if it's still a developing nation, China in particular, have been big buyers on the gold market. So um, I think it's really been three things that have driven the price. The uh, the fact that I don't think people have the confidence in paper money they might have had 50 odd years ago, 50 years and more of government deficits, which are now larger than they've ever been in the United States. They're so large that they've actually shut down the government. If you've got a relative coming up from the US, they may not be making it because the Federal Aviation Authority has actually shut down many flights because the debt has got so big and Congress hasn't approved increasing it that the government services in the US have come to a bit of a standstill. So lack of confidence in governments, buying by other governments as a store of value. And I think a bit of a pause right now in the crypto market as a store of value. I mean, Bitcoin has gone from a few $100 or a coin to what, 100 and something, 110,000, or give or take, at present. a coin. It was Gold was late in its rally here. It probably should have moved up earlier as governments racked up deficits, but Bitcoin and the other cryptocurrencies were seen as the new store of value. But at $110,000 a coin, maybe $4,000 gold doesn't look too expensive.
Now, we've heard that Canadian mining is back, and there is a lot going on in the Canadian mining space, as you've already touched on. Do you think this is what's driving the value of gold up? And you talked about the government and that they want to rely more on the natural resources and be that Team Canada. Do you think by doing that, we'll see the value of gold continue to increase?
Well, gold has had lots of ups and downs. It
Mhm.
from the time that Nixon took the U.S. dollar off the gold standard, it went from $30 or $40 an ounce to $800 an ounce. When I started my career 30 odd years ago, it was maybe $200 an ounce. There was a man I had to, if we're going to talk gold, I'm going to get the name of Nick Barishev in because he was Canada's ultimate gold bug. He wrote a book called $10,000 Gold, and he will be right. Unfortunately, the thing about having something to work out is you may not live long enough to see it come to fruition. Nick passed away a couple of years ago, so yeah, I think it's really important that Canada get its mining projects, its energy projects up and running because gold is $4,000 an ounce now. Once you get projects in development, they take on a life of their own. It is important and it's very possible to raise money to implement projects today. Whether it'll be possible to do that in a year or two, depending on what the price of gold or other commodities does, who knows? But I think for the good of our country, I think it's going to be important for projects to get approved online and going while the price is good.
And Brendan, is it too late for investors to invest in gold right now?
It depends what you mean by too late. Um, I mean, there's always a. I think gold will continue. I mean, if you mean it just as a quick trade, yeah, it's probably not going to go having run up this far to 4,000. It's probably not going to go from 4,000 to 8,000 between now and the end of next year. But as a way of betting against the the government's ability to control their spending, to keep inflation under control. It's as a bet against as the purchasing power of a loonie or a U.S. dollar. I think it'll be important to have at least some gold in the portfolio. A couple of gold companies we like in Canada are Kinross and uh, um, yeah, Kinross would be the main one that we have in the portfolio, and the Nico Eagle would be the other.
Well, Brendan, thank you so much for the time. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Teresa.